Welcome back to the Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thank you everyone for joining. Well, I'm so glad to finally sit down with my girl because it feels like we met a lifetime ago. And now we are finally getting to sit down and have this podcast conversation. So Kimberlee, welcome to the Gyrl podcast.
Yes. Thank you, Kyra. I'm so excited to be here. And you're right. We connected a while ago. I feel like it was in early 2021. And here we are a year later. We finally made it happen.
Yes. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into this conversation. Why don't you start by telling the audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kimberly Smith. I am a mindset and resilience coach. And basically, I help busy women, mothers, and entrepreneurs stop stressing, focus on what matters so that they can really flourish in their businesses, their careers, their families, within motherhood, within their personal lives, or all of the above, right? Because we all know everything is so interconnected. I help my clients, go through, move through self-doubt, build confidence, build energy, and just, get into a better groove of life, right? Get into that flow where they feel like everything is working the way they want it to work. They have harmony. They have, that elusive balance. I'm very careful about the way that I use that word, but harmony for sure. They're reaching their goals. They're living the life that they want to live, one that feels really true to who they are and aligned with, who they are today and really who they want to become.
I love that. Okay. So you said a lot there, girl. I'm ready to unpack some of those things. So, okay. First off, have you always been a coach? How did you become a coach?
Yeah. So no, short answer is no. I had a, 10, 11 year career within recruiting and staffing for a variety of industries. And I reached a point in my life, where I really wanted more for myself. I was kind of disenchanted by my career. It wasn't really lighting me up anymore. I loved being able to help people within their careers and make those transitions, those big life transitions, and be of service to them in that process, because transitions in general they have this ability to shake us. But I kind of got to the place where I needed more. And then at the same time, I was going through a personal reckoning of my own life and my own health and wellness, really trying to manage stress and anxiety and just the weight of the world, right? As a mother, as, a married woman at the time, I was trying to support my husband and his career while also trying to give myself time and attention and make my goals come to life. Mm-hmm. So, I struggled a bit, things got worse before they got better. Absolutely. Yes. And, but along the way, Kyra, I really discovered these holistic tools that helped me manage my mindset, manage my energy day to day, and gave me a real strategy to work on myself and then also my career and all the other different areas of my life. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to share that. And to be honest, I didn't know that life coaching was even a thing. Mm-hmm. And I heard about life coaching on a podcast. I was like, what? This exists? So, that was back in 2016, 2017, when all of this was going down. And I finally pulled the trigger on my certification and haven't regretted one bit of it. It is exactly what I was born to do. And for this phase of my life, it feels so good to be here.
Awesome. I love that. Okay. So, all right. So let's talk about it. So you focus on mindset and being resilient, right? Yes. So you talked about transitions in life, and that is very hard for a lot of us, right? Change is hard for a lot of us. So let's look at it from a few different angles, right? So you've got, you do help people who are currently in a corporate job or profession who may want to make a transition.
Yep.
So that's one, because as we were talking about before we started this, before you all get this part, she and I were having a conversation before where we were just talking about, that feeling and sense of stress, being stressed and overwhelmed, right? It's very early in the year. In all transparency, I was the one who was I was over here talking about feeling burnt out, and not even being at March yet, right? And I'm one of those corporate people that so when you meet someone that is in the corporate workplace and they are feeling overwhelmed, they feel stressed, but they have a thing that they want to be doing, and how do you know, like you said, what are some of the factors you look at when you're saying, I might need to make a change, but I'm just that.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely some red flags, Kyra. I mean, and this speaks to people in corporate. Of course, that's where I spent a lot of my career, and that's, I understand that space immensely. I understand the pressure from management, from senior leadership, being in that myself. And then also when you're trying to make sense of everything and maybe the people at the top just aren't doing their job right. Of course, that always falls down to the people below them, right? And so it speaks to corporate. It's also just everyday people. We are living this very chronically stressed lifestyle there, especially these last couple of years. But even before that, gosh, we've been in a mental health pandemic for decades. The levels of stress and anxiety and depression in our country and on a global basis are staggering, right? Like I would never minimize the pandemic that we're currently in, because obviously we all know how serious it is. And at the same time, the mental health pandemic has been really happening right underneath our noses and is just now getting the attention, right? Because of where we're at. But, red flags, whether you're in corporate or whether you're a stay-at-home mom or whether you're a, mother, entrepreneur, or anywhere in between those spaces, because those are really who I serve. Red flags are always, I think, you start to feel like you're just keeping your head above water, right? You're just treading water. You don't feel like you're making progress. You're just trying to keep up. Also, just a lot of frustration, anxiety. I mean, I started to have anxiety attacks. I started to not really want to get up in the morning. I was just like, why am I working so hard for this? What am I working so hard for? I feel like I'm pouring myself into it, and all I'm left is feeling empty and exhausted at the end of the night, I think anxiety, overwhelm, frustration, irritability, bouts of depression, of course. And, maybe you just feel like you lost your spark too, right? I think a lot of women, a lot of ambitious women, as they climb that ladder in corporate or within their career or business, and then also maybe have a partner and a family on top of it, we pour so much of ourselves into other people and external things that and we certainly, we have this nurturing magic inside us, but we need to turn that around. We also need to remember to nurture our own selves and fill our cup to the point of overflow all the time. That needs to be a constant practice. But I mean, any type of feeling of just like a question mark in your life, like, I don't know why I'm just feeling in a slump. Like we all know when we're in that mental place of just, I don't know, they were just disenchanted with things. We're not vibing like we used to. We maybe are wondering, who are we now after we've acquired all of these things?
Right. Yeah. And, I think that it is important to care for your mental health and your mental wellness, right? And I talk about this a lot on this show, but in 2019 is when I started going to therapy. And I was like, woohoo, who knew, who knew you could like talk to somebody and get these things off your chest, or who knew you could like look at the experience of the past that have like helped to shape who you are, and they are still playing a part in who you are today. And so
Yeah.
I was out there like screaming it to anybody who would listen, telling my friends and whomever, like, go to therapy, get a therapist. And so, then of course, then we come to 2020 and we're in a, living in a pandemic in a very different place. And I think I was saying to someone like last year, I was like, it's just hard to exist right now, I mean, so
Yeah.
if you don't have a outlet in which you can, speak freely about what's going on. And I think a lot of times, like, even when I talk to my therapist and to hear just about like the numbers of people who have come to therapy over the last few years, especially since the pandemic started. And while you mentioned, yes, this has been happening under our nose all this time, but I am thankful that it's finally getting, like seeing commercial TV about people, encouraging people to go to get is very promising, because I think it helps to remove that stigma that, oh, only people who are crazy, go to therapy. And so it's been really good to like see that. But I think I always say, I think everybody needs to go to therapy.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. I do think that that's been one of the benefits to come out of this whole situation, this whole pandemic, is people are starting to wake up, and there is less stigma around mental health. We're realizing how much support we need mentally every single day, and we need a support system. And most often, we've been told that our family and our friends are our support system, which of course they are. But it goes deeper than that, and they have their own things going on in their lives too. It is a skill to hold space for another person and whatever they are going through. And so that's where we lean on the professionals, the therapists, the coaches, the people out there doing that, deep healing work. And it's magic. You realize, okay, a lot of times we're just checking the boxes. That was my story. I was checking the boxes of adulthood and what I needed to do to, kind of quote unquote, make it right. You go to school and get married and buy a house and start a family and all the things, but you may have this perfect on paper life and people may think you have it all together, but inside you might be struggling. And that's exactly how I felt. I had a lot to be grateful for, and I was grateful for it, but I was left kind of feeling like, why isn't this satisfying? Why doesn't it light me up? I wasn't fulfilled for sure. And, I mean, that's no way to live. We don't want to live an empty life. We want to be excited about our days. So yeah, for sure.
And I do. And I love that you brought that up, because there are so many people who are just living a life on paper in which it seems like, oh, wow, yeah, they've got the great life, but this person's like suffering in silence because they won't get the help they need. And another interesting thing that you pointed out is like, yes, and everybody sort of has this like, I guess like, workbook or or not for maybe like an agenda of what you need to check off, of what makes you successful, and then like you said, it might be, I mean, like I remember being younger and my parents, so you got to go to college, you got to get an internship, got to get a job, got to be able to take care of yourself. And so so that was like, for me, I was very focused on, I have to go to finish college, I have to get an internship, I have to graduate college, I have to get a job from that internship, and then I have to be able to like, take care of myself, because that's important, as a daddy's girl, my dad in the background, and you don't need a man to take care of you, so you need to be able to take care of yourself. So it was very much a delight when I was able to open my heart to like my husband, because I wasn't even looking for like a boyfriend or anything, and I definitely wasn't looking for a husband, because I was one of those people where I thought, oh, I'll get married like when I'm 30, maybe when I'm 30 something, and it was just like, who cares, but it was but it is just very interesting, because we carry that weight of what we think is the thing we're supposed to do, when
absolutely
in reality, I mean, you should just do the thing that's comfortable for you and the thing that feels good to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of external expectations that we're living up to, and
Mm-hmm.
hence why, family and friends typically aren't the best people to hold space for us. And they obviously come with their own conditioning, their own particular perspective, which, not to say isn't valuable, but we live in a very shame inducing society where
Mm-hmm.
it's, if you're not X, Y, and Z, then you're not good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being in a space where you can really tap into that authentic self versus our adaptive self, who we've learned we have to be, which we've learned, okay, if I act this way and if I do all of these things, then I'll make people proud, right? We, of
Mm-hmm.
course, want to make people proud. We don't want to let people down. We don't want to be a disappointment. But somewhere along the line, we learned that being ourselves was a disappointment. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I see so often with people. And I saw with myself that I
Mm-hmm.
was afraid that my true self was not going to be good enough. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely been a journey through my own mental health and learning how to
Yeah.
prioritize that, learning how to kind of weave together the pieces of
Mm-hmm.
how do I really practice mindfulness and own my mindset, so
Mm-hmm.
that I can be resilient, so that I can take on anything that life throws at me, which is really what I found most people
Mm-hmm.
wanting, right? Of course, the
Yeah.
stress and the overwhelm and the anxiety, those are the red flags or
Mm-hmm.
uh, the symptoms, but there's
Right.
always more underneath that, right? It might be something
Mm-hmm.
connected to work. It might be something in their partnership. It might be just, who them operating as that adaptive self, which we can only do for so long. It will
Mm-hmm.
become uncomfortable eventually, right? Square
Yeah.
peg, round hole.
Yeah.
So, that's why you see so many people in, they used to call it a midlife crisis. Now it's more, I feel like it comes earlier. Now it's like the 30s, you know, once you become a mother and it's like, as soon as you have those pieces in place, you have this, awakening or
Mm-hmm.
little, meltdown. And yeah, you realize, all right, what do I need to get back on track, or to
Yeah.
really do things a different and better way, something that's more
Mm-hmm.
sustainable for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yes. And that, you know what, that's the key word, is something that's sustainable to you. Because you mentioned when you said something, I thought about, like, yeah, life is coming at you fast. Like, life is just, it's happening and things are coming your way and they're throwing your way, whether you're ready for them or not. But I do
Yeah.
think, like you said, one thing about, being resilient and, taking care of yourself, your wellness, mentally, spiritually, physically, that helps you to maintain and be resilient. And it's interesting that, when I first discovered you and saw that you focused on, being resilient and building that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is so wonderful, because I had heard in so many jobs from so many of my managers, when they would like write reviews or they talk about me, and they're like, oh, she is just so resilient. I mean, and at the time I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But you don't realize that, like, it is definitely something that a lot of people, like, not everyone is, I mean, resilient. It takes a lot to keep going in the face of adversity, to
For
keep getting
sure.
up every day, and to keep pushing forward, even when you don't want to push forward. And so I got to a place to where, when someone, would ask those infamous questions when you're like interviewing or something, and they're like, oh, and what words would you use to describe yourself? And I was like, well, I definitely say resilient. And then I thought about it, and I said, that is like an awesome way to, I'm so excited. It makes me excited to be able to, like, refer to myself, to use that as a descriptor, because it feels like, oh my gosh, like, I am strong. I am tough. I've had a lot of punches thrown at me, and I'm not saying that I don't have scars from them, but I was
Right.
able to pick myself up and take the lesson, so to speak. And so when you talk about mindset and resilience, I know you talk about teaching people how to become resilient. And so first, for anybody out there, because I gave a definition that applies to me. If you had to say, this is how I define being resilience, what would you say?
Yeah, well, and it is, to me, it's a combination of things. It's not just one thing. It's not something we're born with or not. It's not something that we either have or we don't. It's definitely something that anybody can build for themselves. And, what I've learned through my clients and just, my work is that, we all may have our difference of opinion in terms of what it means, but it has some common themes, right? Like you mentioned strength. I think that being resilient, you definitely feel powerful. You feel in control of your mindset, in control of your energy, in control of just your life, right? Like, that you're co-creating things. Now that being said, yeah, like life is going to throw you some curveballs. So you're going to have the confidence, the trust in yourself and in the unknown. I think those are some key things about being resilient, is that you have to trust yourself and trust what you don't know yet, right? I think the unknown is something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. But, somebody who's really resilient, I think, is caring for themselves mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. They are meeting their own needs. They know when to drop in and push, and they know when to take their foot off the gas, right? So we do assume that and think of resilience as strength and power and control, but it's also flexibility. It's also creativity, using your resources, tapping into, what you need and figuring out and learning how to figure the pieces out, right? So it's being resourceful and solution, oriented in terms of your mindset. And it's also allowing things to happen, right? And so while we want to have some control in the matter and in resilience, we also have to be aware enough to recognize where we don't have control, where we need to actually let go and have that trust. So yeah, I think people just want to feel like they can take on whatever comes their way, that they're confident in what they know about themselves and what they don't know yet, and that they're going to be okay. That is a game changer when you're prioritizing yourself and you're using those tools, that kind of holistic toolkit as your roadmap. Things naturally fall into place. Things feel easier. I always talk about, taking the easier path, right? And we think that doing everything ourselves is easier sometimes, or that we need to figure things out ourselves. And, there's something to be said for using your resources and knowing maybe when you're not the best person for something, but you need to pass the baton or whatever, right? Discernment and trust and judgment plays a huge role in being resilient as well.
Yeah. And I definitely think too, like it's like, that's where agility truly comes into play, where people are like, remember when that was a buzzword for corporate? Agile.
Yeah.
You have to be agile.
And being able to pivot, right? That's been another one, right? We've heard so many businesses, and that is true. Being agile, being able to pivot and being able to flow as things happen, right? Because we may do all the right things, but then there's something else that pushes us in a different direction. And I think detachment is also a huge part about being resilient. We are always working towards something or towards an outcome, even if it's just getting through the day, right? And there are going to be things that kind of blow us, but maybe that's a good thing, right? And a lot of times we get frustrated by things not going the way we thought they would, or the way we intended, when really maybe that wasn't the best option, right? Maybe we couldn't see that, and we were just divinely repositioned.
Exactly. Yes. Because that definitely, I would agree with you. Because for me, it's like, at some point I'm like, okay, God, like, you got it, and whatever your belief system is. But for me, it's like at time where I'm like, okay, if I say that I trust you, then I gotta let this go. And I can't be worried about it. But I think one of the things, you mentioned is really like too with your mindset. You control how you react to something. And I think that that was a big thing for me a long time, like in the corporate world, like where I would be like, oh my God, like, and that literally all day. And I'd be
Yeah.
coming out of this office telling my husband, like, I'll just tell you what they look. A lot of words that I can't say right now.
Yeah.
But eventually, through like talking things out, with in therapy, sort of like looking at and going, now I'm a person that always says, I'm not saving anybody's life today. I'm just marketing. Like I'm just over here working on strategy, building out marketing plans. I am not doing operations. I ain't gonna save nobody today. Nobody's gonna pat me on the back and say, Kyra, thanks for saving me. So eventually I just got to this place where I was just like, okay, you got it. Well, my whole my whole thing is I always go, yeah, you got it, Chief. You got it. Or
That's
it's like, I just am like, okay, it's all you. My hands, I'm good. And so when I started to like let go of that and stop trying to like every time something happened that I didn't like or it didn't happen the way that I wanted, and just and I was like, no, that's making me angry and putting me in a bad mood. And now I'm just, when somebody does something, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we'll just do this or whatever. We can do it a different way, whatever, or someone says, oh yeah, I know you've been working on this project for like the last 6 months, but guess what? We don't have the funds. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, emotional intelligence, right, is a
Yes.
huge
Yeah.
part of resilience and
Yes.
something that we're not really brought up with. I think that most people, when they encounter that term, even are well into adulthood. I know that I was.
Yeah.
And now things are being talked about more, of course, our parents' generation, emotions were, oh, you don't talk about those. You just pack them up in a suitcase, shove it under the bed. And yeah, emotions have a lot of information and we do control our reactions to it. Also resilience is about being proactive, right? Versus reactive, right? So yeah, what can I do? And then when can I let go? Like you said, the spiritual aspect for sure. And it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. You weren't meant to bear the burden for everything and you can't do all the heavy lifting.
Yes.
So, know when to take action and then when to let go and be ready to receive. And it might be in a way that you never even imagined. And that's where the detachment comes back in, is that we get very attached to how things have to happen. And that's a very closed off mindset. If we can open our mind to the possibilities and be like, okay, I've done my work and this is what I can do in the situation or in the entire scope of this. Now what, right? Oftentimes then we see that next step or we see a sign that kind of leads us to more clarity and direction.
Awesome. Yep. Now let's talk about one of my favorites. What role does boundaries play in becoming more resilient?
Yeah, boundaries are great. I think that I've struggled over the years with them. Now I'm great at knowing. I think boundaries, number one, aren't a bad thing. People have this adverse, like I don't know. I don't know if I can set a boundary, right? Like, first off, like boundaries don't have to be a big deal. They don't have to be this harsh, thing that shocks everybody who comes into contact with them. Right. They can be expressed in a really loving and compassionate and kind way. And the purpose really is to protect ourselves, our mindset, our energy, and our time as well. I think that a lot of us give away our time to things that really don't deserve it. Right. And that might be things that we're doing in our life or giving it to certain people or certain outlets, whatever it might be. But yeah, they definitely protect our time and our energy and our mindset and give us more freedom, right? They create more space and more time for the things that we actually really want to do versus the things that we feel like we have to do. They're a reminder that we always have a choice in the matter. I think a lot of people feel like they don't have a choice, that they have to be in the PTO or they have to be classroom mom or they have to join this committee at work. You don't have to do any of it.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yes.
You've got other endeavors. Like you do not have to, but again,
Mhm,
we're very concerned. We want to be liked, we want to be accepted, we want to feel like we
mhm,
belong.
mhm,
And what are the things that we think we have to do that, right? And usually it's all of these external, motions that we
mhm.
think people are then going to say, oh yeah, she's got it together, I like her. When really they're really not thinking about you that much either.
No, they're not. But I definitely think one of the best things you can ever do for yourself is like not care. Is not care if somebody likes you or not. Because I always tell people, I used to, but I still tell people this. I said, well, I just think I've got like a personality that either you like really, really like me and you're like, oh my God, I love her. Or you're like, yeah, I don't know. And they were like, what do you mean? Like I was like, yeah, I don't really care though. It's just like either you do or you don't. If you don't, then that's cool. We don't, we don't vibe. And I said, and I'm perfectly fine not having a vibe with everyone because I do have like standards of the types of people that like I want to hang around and let into my circle. I don't have a lot of friends and I'm fine with that because I only need, guess what? I only need really like one good friend. And
Right.
so, and so whenever I would say that, they were like, oh my goodness, that's just weird. I've never heard anybody say that. And I was like, but I was like, just think about it though. I said, look at yourself too. And you can say that. So I'm actually quite proud of that because because I'm like I've got sarcasm. That's like one of my favorites. I said I've just got a sense of humor that doesn't always gel with a lot of people, whatever. Things I find funny, some people don't. And I said, and I think it's okay. I said, so you can be okay with meeting somebody and just having them as an acquaintance. I said you don't have to make everybody like your friend.
Right. Yeah. Not everybody deserves a front row seat to your
Exactly.
life or, a ticket to your time. And I
Exactly.
love just what you said about being okay with having a smaller circle. I think that that's definitely some societal conditioning that like, oh, like, having a big group of friends is just so amazing. And like, yeah, there's been times where I had quite a few friends and now
Hmm.
in my life, I feel like we're all sprinkled around, but
Yeah.
day to day, right? Locally, same thing, small circle, small
Hmm.
selective circle.
Yeah.
And I think that's also really conducive to knowing yourself and being your authentic self is having that small
Mhm,
circle. Once we have this huge circle, then, then you obviously have all of these external forces that you feel like
mhm,
you need to align with and try and
mhm,
kind of fit in with. And that's something that I think makes people uncomfortable with setting boundaries is
mhm,
being in groups of people that they don't really know and they don't really know them, and then at the
yeah,
same time not really knowing themselves, right? So you
yeah,
talked about like, I know myself, like I'm good with just having a small circle, I'm good
mhm,
with just not really driving with a lot of people. And but yeah, most people probably couldn't say that. So knowing
yeah,
yourself, knowing the capacity that you have in your life for certain
mhm,
relationships, for certain commitments, is all part of setting boundaries that are going to
mhm,
be really supportive. Their boundaries are part of our support system too.
mhm, mhm. And
Hmm.
you get there, everyone. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I just like Kimberly said, I mean, I had a big group of friends when I was younger. And but as you get older and you figure out what's important, what matters to you
Hmm.
and what because life time is not promised. And so you get to this place of like, I don't want to be wasting my time with people who I wouldn't call, if something happened in my life, like I wouldn't call you and tell you about it or ask for your advice. So it's like, why am I out here, hanging out with you and giving you all this other time? And so,
Right.
and like something you said earlier, I do think it comes with like, having certain gifts, like discernment is definitely one of mine. Like I sort of know when I meet you, I know what it's going to be, like I know
Mhm.
like if it's like this or if it's going to be like this. And if it's like this, that's cool. We just do this. Hey,
Yeah.
you know,
Hey. Yeah.
and
Well, and with friends, absolutely boundaries is I think a
mm-hmm,
it's definitely essential.
Yeah.
and also with family and with our
Hmm.
work and with
Yes. All.
ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely a way to protect ourselves, make more time, but also
Yeah.
like protect ourselves from the influences that we know that
Hmm.
aren't going to be what we need. And
Right.
sometimes our parents offer influence and, unsolicited feedback. Sometimes it's a boss that's asking us to put in more hours when we've already put to the max, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, knowing yourself, knowing your capacity
Hmm.
for what you have available in your life as far as time and energy, and then how does that work into your day to day, and even setting boundaries with yourself. I've had
Hmm.
to reel it in, right? I find myself on the couch sometimes too many nights in a row watching Netflix. I'm like, it actually isn't really what I need right now.
Hmm.
So setting that boundary. I talked about not going to a Super Bowl party the other night because I'm like, I need to plan my stuff out, and I, as much as
Hmm.
I want to go to that party, I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to be distracted. I'm not going to be there. Right. So boundaries come in just so many different
Yeah.
forms.
Hmm.
And, they don't have to be forever boundaries. Sometimes they're just temporary,
Hmm.
but they help us meet our own needs
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah. And you can start small, like
Yes.
start small and build, and they are a great thing. So all right. So let's talk about how anyone out there listening or watching can work with you. Tell us about your program.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Kyra, I work with, women mothers, entrepreneurs. I work with women one-on-one, usually for a period of 6 months. That's kind of my standard. That's really the sweet spot of seeing the results and building consistency. So of course you can find more out about me on my website, and you could even book a free discovery call. My website is encompasscoachingservices.com. Also, you can connect with me on social media, which is at kimberly.brooke, BROOKE.Smith. And yeah, I have a group program as well as one-on-one, the Empowered Resilient Woman. We're currently in phase 3. So that's happening right now, but the waitlist for ERW 4.0 will be out soon. And I have some courses coming down the pipeline as well. So, Mindset Mastery will be created into that was a live course, but now it's going to be a self guided. And then
Okay.
even ERW, Empowered Resilient Woman, there's going to be a course for that that's coming soon. And, if you're looking for other things like goal setting and all of that, I have a great goal setting guide, the Alchemy Guide, which is available. It's kind of your forever tool for, more clarity, more direction, and really setting and achieving powerful goals in your life. And that's a self-guided tool that you can actually purchase online and use forever. So yeah, those are
Awesome.
just a few ways to get in touch and explore working with me.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, now we're going to move into our last segment together. So before I let you go, I'm going to ask you 3 questions about you, things about you that will help the audience get to know you a little bit better. I always say 3 and end up going over. So we're going to see if I can
Mm,
keep myself on track. So number 1 is, how do you start the day?
yeah, great question. Well, usually I start the day by taking my little dachshunds outside and coming in and having some quiet time to myself. I definitely enjoy a slow morning. I love just drinking my coffee, journaling, doing a little reading. So some mornings I do that. Some mornings I hop right up and I get my workout in. That's also one of my favorite ways to start the day, is really get my blood moving and get that workout, checked off my list. So yeah, I think those are probably my favorite. Sometimes it's either slow or I'm raring to go. So
I love that. Okay, so 2, what do you like doing on a day off?
oh, good question. Yeah, well, I love finding a good patio or a coffee shop to just go
Mhm.
visit. I'd call myself a little bit of a coffee shop connoisseur. I love going to like cute little boutique places, just I love the decor. I love the energy, treating myself to a coffee and maybe a little treat. I have a huge sweet tooth, so that's also a fun fact. But exploring the city, I live in Houston, which there's always something fun going on.
Mhm.
Even now, there's just a lot of great parks, a lot of great places you can just go and walk around. So sometimes I don't the best plan for me is not having a plan, is just kind of going through my day and really feeling into, all right, what do I feel like now? That's always nice, is not having an agenda.
All right. I like it. So I'm going to throw in another question. What's a song in your playlist that gets you like going?
Good question. I'm going to pull up my Spotify right now so I can see the most recent. So let's see here. Something that gets me going. Well, one of my favorite bands is Odessa. So they have a new song out right now called The Last Goodbye, which is really awesome. It has some really great energy to it. Also their song Loyal, it's all instrumental, but it just really gets me in a good energy, gets me vibing. And the band Surfaces, actually, it was probably one of my most played in 2021. They're kind of this mix between reggae and pop and just like feel good stuff, right? Like mood lifting. So yeah, Odessa and Surfaces, they're some of my go-tos to lift my spirit.
Like it. And last, how do you end the day?
And I try and end the day just like I start it, slowly. Of course, I love my Netflix shows and all that, but a lot of times I don't watch TV in the evenings. I really try to, take a shower, or I'm big into skincare. I love to do at-home facials, or just take my time doing my own little skincare routine, and then reading, and then I go to bed. I do my gratitude in the morning and in the evening, and that's it. I just like to wind down with quiet.
I like that. That makes sense. I love that I like that you said you ease into the day. If possible, like those are the best mornings, right?
Yes.
But I agree with you. I do like to work out first. I like to get myself going because I feel like that gets me motivated. But then I like to sort of ease in, but get stuff done. But like not be distracted by other people, Oh yeah, do you have a minute? No. I'm always on do not disturb.
Yes, same. Gosh, that button is like my favorite now on iPhone. It's so great. Well, and as much as I love, conversing, I consider myself to be for sure an extroverted introvert, and I really need that solitude to recharge. And that's something that I didn't always know about myself. I would leave, all of those social things kind of feeling like I had that social hangover. So yeah, the quiet time, the stillness in the morning and in the evening is definitely essential for me.
Awesome. Well, before I let you go, one last time, let the audience know how they can connect to you.
Yes, absolutely. Find me on IG, Instagram. I love it. That's probably the platform that I show up most frequently. And my handle is at Kimberlee, KIMBERLY .Brooke, Smith. And my website is www.encompasscoachingservices.com. So Encompass is ENCOMPASS, coachingservices.com.
Awesome. Well, I will also drop this all in the show notes so that you all can grab it easily. So thank you, Kimberlee, so much for coming and sharing with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kyra. This was great.
Yes. Well, you always can come back here and share with the Glow Up Girl audience in the future.
Sounds great. Awesome.
All right. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.